Here's something that should bother you more than it does. Right now, keeping a newborn baby alive requires hospitals, incubators, formula, sterile equipment, trained nurses, and decades of accumulated medical knowledge. And even with all of that, it's still hard. So ask yourself this: how did any of us survive before any of that existed? Not a few hundred years ago, not during the Middle Ages. We're talking about 50,000 years ago, when the nearest thing to a hospital was a cave, when the nearest thing to a doctor was simply the oldest woman in the group. Human babies are among the most helpless creatures ever born. They can't walk. They can't feed themselves. They can't regulate their body temperature. They can't even hold up their own heads. By every measure, they should have been incredibly difficult to keep alive. Yet somehow, generation after generation, our ancestors managed to do exactly that. And the answer isn't just one invention or one discovery. It's a collection of survival strategies so effective that they allowed humanity to spread across every continent on Earth. The first one begins with something almost everyone takes for granted: breast milk. Let's start with the most basic question. How did ancient babies eat? The obvious answer is breast milk. But what most people don't realize is that breast milk isn't just food. It's one of the most advanced biological systems evolution has ever produced. Human breast milk constantly changes, not only from one mother to another, but from one day to the next. And even during a single feeding session, the milk a baby drinks during the first few minutes is thinner and packed with water to quench thirst. Toward the end of the feeding, it becomes thicker, richer, and loaded with fat to provide calories for growth. It's as if every feeding is perfectly adjusted to what the baby needs at that exact moment. Then, something even more remarkable happens. For the first few days after birth, mothers don't produce ordinary milk at all. Instead, they produce a thick, golden fluid called colostrum.
Scientists often describe it as a newborn's first vaccine. It's packed with antibodies that begin protecting the baby's body long before its own immune system is capable of defending itself. Ancient humans had no idea what antibodies were. They couldn't see bacteria. They didn't understand viruses. But they knew one thing: babies that received this first milk survived more often. So generation after generation, they protected that practice. Without realizing it, they were practicing medicine.
But even this extraordinary system had one terrifying weakness. What happened when the mother didn't survive? Childbirth has always been dangerous. In ancient times, every birth carried real risk. If a mother died, her newborn often lost its only source of food. At least, that's what most people assume. But that's not what happened. Because ancient humans had already developed another survival strategy. One that may have changed the course of human history forever. But there was a secret weapon that helped humanity survive. This is the part that completely changes the way most people imagine ancient human life. We often picture a mother and father raising a child on their own. But for most of human history, that wasn't how families worked. A baby didn't belong only to its parents. In many ways, it belonged to the entire group. Anthropologists call this alloparenting. The word simply means that people other than a child's biological parents help raise and protect them. And among early humans, this wasn't unusual. It was essential. If a mother became sick, someone else carried the baby. If she needed to gather food, another adult watched over the child. If danger approached, several people protected the infant at once. Every extra pair of hands increased a baby's chances of surviving another day. And perhaps the most extraordinary helpers of all were grandmothers. At first, that might not sound surprising, but from an evolutionary perspective, it raises an incredible question. Why do human women often live decades after they stop having children? Among most animals, surviving long after reproduction offers very little evolutionary advantage. Yet humans are different. One explanation is something scientists call the grandmother hypothesis. The idea is surprisingly simple. Grandmothers who stayed alive could gather food, teach younger mothers, watch children while others hunted, and dramatically improve the survival of their grandchildren. Over thousands of generations, families with helpful grandmothers simply produced more surviving descendants. The hypothesis is correct. Your own existence may partly be the result of grandmothers who lived just a little longer than everyone else. But they weren't the only lifesavers. If a mother died during childbirth, another woman in the community often stepped in. If she was already nursing her own child, she could breastfeed another baby as well. Today, this might seem unusual. Back then, it was simply what people did. A hungry infant wasn't viewed as someone else's problem. It was everyone's responsibility. So let's step back and look at the bigger picture. For almost all of human history, there were no hospitals, no antibiotics, no vaccines, no incubators. Yet somehow, our ancestors kept generation after generation of helpless babies alive. They did it with breast milk that adapted to a baby's changing needs. With grandmothers whose wisdom became as valuable as food itself. With communities that shared childcare instead of leaving parents to struggle alone. With thousands of years of observation that slowly became tradition. And with one simple idea that quietly shaped the future of our species. No human survives alone. Every one of us is here because countless people, most of whose names we'll never know, shared their time, their knowledge, their food, and sometimes even their own milk to give another child a chance to live. Long before humans built cities, invented writing, or explored the stars, we mastered something even more important: taking care of each other. And perhaps that's the oldest technology humanity ever created. If you've ever wondered what truly made humans different from every other species, it may not have been our intelligence alone. It may have been our willingness to keep the smallest, weakest, and most vulnerable among us alive. Because without them, So the next time you see a newborn, remember this. You're looking at a survival strategy that has been refined over hundreds of thousands of years. A strategy built not on strength, but on cooperation. Every laugh, every first step, every child who grew up to have children of their own was possible because somewhere in the distant past, a community chose to care for someone who couldn't survive alone.